to webinar, this month's webinar. We usually do it Wednesday. I had travel plans for Wednesday, so we moved it to Friday, but that travel plan got moved. But we're still here on Friday. So, but we have it every Wednesday, every first Wednesday of the month. So let's start with the usual question that you get in my webinars. So let's get some engagement going over here. So what are your expectations from this webinar? I'll give you a couple of minutes, a minute maybe, to think about and what you want to take away from this webinar. You can use chat box, or you can actually talk also. I have kept the lines open, so if you want to talk, you can talk. Joe, I will respond to your ACP at the end of the webinar. Increase skill set around Agile. Okay, that's very good. That's very good. Anybody else? How to ensure I am kept in loop as the PM for information. Okay. Kamal or Isabel? How to keep the customer engaged. Yeah, that's what we are going to talk about. Isabel, do you have any expectations from this webinar? Customer engagement. Okay, that's what we are going to talk about. Okay, all right. Let's get started on this. So I will not spend any time on my introduction. Most of you know, but I do want to talk about what is new at RefineM. So these webinars we do every first Wednesday of the month. So in the Agile part, we'll be talking about Scrum versus Kanban. There are a lot of people have a lot of questions about what's the difference, and where do we use Scrum, where do we use Kanban, and things like that. So that's what we will cover in our next webinar on April 4. And then on May 2, we'll be talking about leadership skills for project managers. All project managers will need leadership skills, whether they are managing one project or they are managing multiple projects. Some senior project managers who have been in project management realm for 10, 15, 20 years may already have a need for developing leadership skills, because that's what they need to do multiple projects, larger projects, work with stakeholders. So we'll talk about that on May 2. And then we have several trainings launched. We have multiple PMP trainings, ACP also, business analysis training, and then we have introduced a Kanban fundamental, like Scrum fundamentals. We have Kanban fundamental, and of course we have our simulator videos, and our live video chat sessions are going to be now on Thursdays. We'll notify you more about those. So once again, on the manifesto of Agile software development, you might have seen it, I don't know how many times by now. So does anybody has any question on that? Joe, Isabel, Kamal, Nathan, anybody has any question on this? I see somebody has not put their name, but that's fine. So does anybody has any question? I think that's pretty clear, and I talk about this all the times, so it should be very, very clear. And then the 12 practices, we talk about that also multiple times. You might have seen this slide in most of my Agile presentation. I used to list the 12 Agile principles, and don't go over that, because most of you would have seen it, may know already about it. Is there any particular principle that anyone would like to talk about? I'll give some time if you want to talk about me to elaborate on any principle, then I can take some time and elaborate on that principle. So anything that you are looking for. Okay, I don't get any response. It means everybody knows about these things. So let's move forward. And then we talk about agile practices. So how practices are different than principles. So principles are like something, sitting there with abstract thing. But practice is what make the principle realizable. So that's what you see. So these are some things that will involve like verbs, maintain, progressive elaboration, daily stand-up, do frequent reviews, doing retrospectives, using wireframe, visualizing, limiting, involving customer. So you can see it has some little activity work and the work that need to be carried out. And by doing these practices, you implement those principles. So there are about 15 or 16 of those. And I usually focus on the 10 on the left because I feel that if an agile team is able to do that, I think that will be great. They should try to do this first rather than trying to do the second part over here. It will be easier for them to do these first. So that's why they are my kind of higher criticality or higher value practices than the lower value practices. So we have in our previous webinars, we have talked about practices up to number 8. Now we'll be talking about number 9, so which is customer involvement throughout the project. That's one thing which is required, which is needed, and which is also seen in most of the agile projects. So we'll talk about this practice in a little bit more detail. So let's see. This is another engagement question. So to which agile principle would you map the practice of customer involvement? So I showed you 12 principles, and I'll show you that again to you. So where does it map to? Involving customer. So think about, look at these 12 practices and see where does this map to? Directly or indirectly?
Almost all of them, if it's indirectly or directly.
Yeah.
Okay, I may agree with that. I may not agree with that. But let's see which practice stands out.
Number 6.
Number 6. Okay. What else?
Number 1.
Number 1. Yeah. Number 1 says customer. So if it says customer, this must be customer related.
Number 2, most changes come from the customer, no?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Most changes come from the customer. Yeah, that's true.
Number 3, you're certainly delivering to the customer.
Yeah. Number 4, Isabel is talking about number 4. So seems like a lot of these map to. So I map to the 2 that I thought are directly, but of course you can see all of those and see that it relates to the practices map to multiple principles. One practice maps to multiple principles, and that's good. That's good. Okay, let's move on. So we'll talk about so how customer in Agile is involved in Agile. So it should be daily, every day. Every day, customer needs to be involved. Like one of the principle is team working together. every day. Yeah. So they need to be involved daily, or if daily is not possible, then as close to daily as possible. Ideal will be every day. I have seen in many agile teams, even customer and team sit together in a room. So if that is ideal, that customer is in the same room as the team. But many times you do not have that kind of luxury. The customer may be sitting in the business area, and the team may be in IT area, and those two areas may be different. Sometimes they are in different buildings. Sometimes they are in different cities. Sometimes they are in different continents. So need to be daily as close as possible, and need to face to face. I was talking about the best most effective ways to be face to face, and that's a challenge, to have the team and the customer together face to face. But that's what will give the most results. That is what will give the most results. And involve them in various activities, like they can be involved in demos and frequent reviews that you do. But there are many places that they can be involved, and I will talk about that in a couple of minutes. And then, of course, why this need to happen? Any ideas why the customer should be involved on a daily basis, face to face, in reviews and demos? Why? Can anybody talk about why?
They're the ones driving the requirements.
That is the one driving the requirements. Yeah. Because that is what giving the requirements. Yeah, absolutely right. What else?
If there's any changes, they're noticed, or they're noted early as possible, so that you don't get further down the road and have more rework to do. So it's
so that saves the rework.
Yeah,
it saves the rework. Yeah. And why? Another, I think there's an first principle: satisfy customer, right?
well, they're involved in shaping the scope too, and if there's scope creep, sometimes things have to be reevaluated and determined whether we're going to extend the time to deliver or reduce the scope, and that's going to be a customer decision more often than not.
Yes, and since that is a customer decision, so they drive, they control.
Mm-hmm.
So they are satisfied with that. So by doing that, we drive satisfaction, because then they feel good about it. Because they feel that their people are hearing them, people are listening to them, and actually changing course of the project based on their changes. And I think, Joe, it was you talking about, should we extend the project or not? And that's a decision that they don't have to take right away. So if it is a 1 year long project, and it is in the second month, and they come up with a new request or new feature or function that they feel is higher priority than the rest of the backlog, then we don't have to say that, okay, that will extend it by 15 days. We don't have to make that declaration, and we don't have to tell them as a development team. They tell. So they say, okay, we will take this and we'll push other things, and probably that decision whether to extend the project or not can be taken in the 10th month or 11th month or even 12th month. Maybe after 12 months are over, they can reevaluate what is left out, what did not get completed. And if did not get completed, then they can say, okay, do you want to spend money and time on this or not? Because those are the low value items anyway. So they may say, we don't need, or it actually gives them power to even finish early. So if they say in 10 months they got what was most valuable for them, they may decide not even to go to 12 months. So I think that decision rests with them. It doesn't rest with the team, and they tell what to do, when to do through the product owner, and team just takes direction from product owner and moves on. Team is not going to decide whether it is going to increase the scope or time or cost and all those kind of things. Those things are not even discussed until they have to be discussed. So whereas in waterfall projects, if you identify a change and people have approved that change, the project manager will immediately say, okay, here is the updated schedule and the cost. They are supposed to do that, right? They have to create a new baseline. If many of you have worked in waterfall projects, that is what they are supposed to do. So it's very important to involve customer, and these are the reasons. And these are the reasons why non-agile or waterfall projects have problems. If you involve the customer heavily and let them take control of the things, then there is hardly any conflicts or any kind of issues, because they are driving it. The technical team is just doing whatever the customer wants them to do. And that way, actually, team also will feel better because they are not stressed to squeeze things in and try to finish everything at new scope or added scope or change the scope within the same time frame. So I think this is very, very important part, and Agile emphasizes it like nothing else. So the benefits we talked about. So reiterate them. So they see the value that they get sooner than later, and they can refine what they're asking, and also will buy into the process. They will have a greater buy-in. They will have more trust with the team. Because that's something I hear many times, that we cannot trust the dev team. They tell us that they will do it and then they don't do it. So it will help in building the trust right from the very beginning, and it will stay the same way. So there are huge benefits involving the customer. Okay, so let's think about, where can a customer be involved in an agile project? So I'm using Scrum for now. We can talk about Kanban too, but I'm using Scrum. You might have seen a version of Scrum flow, but just take a little time to explain this flow so you can. So we start the Scrum process with product planning. So part of the product planning is at the end of product planning, you get the product backlog, which is the requirements, stories, epics, whatever you call, and they are sized in a different bucket size, small, medium, large kind of thing. And also you create a product roadmap. For a 12-month project, what we are going to do first 3 months, next 3 months, next 3 months, and so on and so forth. That you get from there, and then you do project initiation, you do justification, you create charter of the project, define the project. So that's what happens here. And then for larger project, this release planning step is an optional step, but larger project will need release planning, because you are not going to hold delivery of the product until 12 months or 14 months. And also sometimes you may be able to deliver working software at the end of each sprint, but you may not be willing to put that in production because of business reasons. So you may wait for 2, 3, 4 sprints to put the things in production, and that is what is determined in the release planning. And you create a release backlog. So whole entire project is divided into releases, and you have release backlog. And for the first release, you have sprints defined, and you say, okay, what you're going to do in each of these sprints, like you see it down at the bottom. and then you start doing your sprints, or you start sprinting. So you have sprint planning, you have daily stand-up, reviews, retrospectives, and then sprint get completed, and you get to the next sprint, next sprint, next sprint, next release, and then you close the project. So this is something, many of you may be familiar. If you have any question about any of the things that I have represented here, please feel free to ask. And I'll give you maybe a minute or so to think about, and either put it in a chat or tell me over phone, where do you think customer can be involved in this whole process? What are the stages where you think customers should be involved or will provide benefit? Which stage?
Sprint review.
Sprint review. Very good. So sprint review. Okay. Noted. Where else you think? Kamal Said saying throughout. Okay. Anybody else? Isabel, throughout the entire process. And we'll talk about how, if somebody's saying throughout, what the customer will do. What the customer will do in each step. So let's start thinking. So the first one here, product backlog or product planning. So think about how the customer will be involved, what they will do. So some people said throughout. So I will let Kamal or Isabel chime in through the chat or audio.
Yeah,
Define the scope.
so customer is the one who's actually working the backlog, right? So they are involved right there in the beginning.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, so they are defining the items that go in the backlog, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So customer is defining that item, and product owner is there. There are other people who are helping prioritization and building the backlog, right? So yeah, so customer is involved in building, because customer is the one who builds the backlog. They know what they are looking for, and customer means, sometimes, if you are developing a application for general use, like let's say, for example, you are developing an iPhone app. Now how do you involve customer? There are thousands and thousands of customer, billions of customer, because if you are the iPhone app developer, or you are the company who are developing the iPhone app, or how Apple will involve customer in creating the backlog for iPhone 220, okay, whatever. So how this thing will happen? If it is a in-house product, then you can take people from the business, right? You can take people from the business, different departments, and involve them in building this. But if you are developing a product for the masses, how do you involve customer?
Surveys, probably.
What's that?
Surveys.
Yeah, survey is a very non-interactive way, not an agile way to involve customer.
Okay.
Focus groups?
What's that?
Focus groups?
They won't come to your backlog sessions. How it can be interactive? So focus group and all that, I think those are good things. Probably you will collect their information, and you can send a survey and let people say, okay, I want this feature, I want this feature, I want that feature, and all that. You can have a focus group, but how to involve them in that, so they can give some input, but then that's gone.
So
Which
you
is
can
not,
do.
you know.
So you
Yes.
can do a beta release or something like that and let people test out. Microsoft does that on
Yeah,
the.
but before you go to beta release means you have already developed it.
Okay.
Right? Beta release means you have already developed it. So how a product company will do that?
So sometime you have to lead the way, right? Because, for
Yeah.
example,
So how you lead the way? So it means you have to have some people in your organization who have idea about that product. Some subject matter experts, some people. There will be normally in those companies, you will have product managers. You will have product teams, right? Who basically do all that what you're talking about. They do survey, they do focus group, they do all those things to collect information, and then they come to this product planning session with product owner, with the scrum master, with leads, and do this planning. So they represent actually the bigger set of customers. So most of the companies who do product development for masses will have a product manager and product management team who will basically will tell what the customer. They might have done all these kind of things. They might have surveyed, they might have seen other products, they might have done all that. So those are the people who will be interactively involved in providing this information. It is easier for in-house development. Let's say if you are a healthcare company, you provide healthcare products. Now, so there will be business people, who are part of it. So they will say, okay, we'll consult the business people, and that business people will come, and like an insurance company, for example. So you have the business people within the company, because they are issuing the insurance product, like policy and all those kind of things. So that's how the customer can be involved. But very important, that's where it begins, right? So any question? Otherwise, we'll just go to this part here. So the customer can also be involved in developing the project charter, justifying why this project, because that's not the team need to decide. What is the business case? Why this project should be taken up? Why we should develop even this product? That why part is something that the business has to work on. The customer business side has to tell. Team doesn't have to worry about this. Team will say, okay, you want me to do this, I'll do this. I don't know. What is the business justification, right? So that's where they'll be involved. And then release planning, of course. What goes when, and at what stage we need to take this work done by the team and release to production and release to our customers so they can start using it. Somebody just talked about, a beta. So a beta can be an MVP, minimum viable product, and you can have a release for a minimum viable product that goes in the market, and you get feedback. The purpose of beta release is get feedback. Find what customers are saying, and take that feedback, and then come back with other release. Sometimes that release may be even lesser than beta. So it all depends upon what the customers are looking for, when they want to have these releases, what they want to get in each release. Very important. I think these are all upfront part of the project. I have seen in many situations the teams struggle to start agile project, and they don't do these steps. They just jump here and start sprinting. and then after some time they struggle. They don't know where they are going. They don't know what needs to be done. They don't know who are the product owner. Some teams even work without a product owner. Can you believe that? I don't know if you have seen it or not, but I have seen it. So one of the company where I did agile coaching, on my first day, I sat down with the president of the company, small company, 50, 60 people company. And I asked, who is the product owner? He said, I'm the product owner. I said, no, you cannot be the product owner. He said, I decide what happens in this company. Yeah, well, you decide what happens in the company. You cannot sit with the team and do all these kind of things. So you have to assign a product owner. He can work with you, take your inputs, and build and work with the team. But you cannot be the product owner. So it's very important. It's extremely important that we have customer involvement in these steps. Any questions? Okay, all right. Now the next step is, customer can be involved and should be involved in sprint planning too, because now we are getting down to a particular sprint. So we have done this high level planning over here. This was very high level. And then we come down to the release level. And now we are in the sprint level. So what goes in a sprint? Usually the product owner is the person who finally makes a call, what goes in the sprint, what the team should work on. But product owner take input from the customers, stakeholders, whosoever are going to get benefited by the product. So they take those input and go there. Now, daily stand-ups. You can see my arrow here is not as dark green as the other one, right? And I am like I don't worry about if customers are not involved in daily stand-up, because once the team gets the direction, this is for the team to find the showstoppers, find the blockers on a daily basis, and get those blockers resolved. Sometimes even product owners may not be required in daily stand-ups. Will it help if customer is involved? Maybe in a limited way. Sometimes in these meetings, customer involvement can be a distraction. So let's talk about it. What do you think involving customers in daily stand-up meeting? Should they be involved? Should they not be involved? Anyone wants to type or say? Everybody is so silent. Okay, I get something. Has the potential to make the meeting? Yes. Yeah, it's a 15-minute meeting. Yeah, that's one challenge. If you have more people, then the meeting may run into half an hour, an hour, and you don't want to do that. It's a very focused meeting.
So NK, just to be clear, earlier when you asked where the customer should be involved, I was focused on the blow up here. So that's why I said sprint review. If you look at holistically, obviously the customer is involved in almost every stage. I don't think they're involved in the daily stand-up though. Is that correct?
Yes. So that's why my arrow there is a green one. But if it is a very small team, like 2 developers, 1 tester, one or two customers, one of them is playing the product owner role, everybody put together is 5 or 6 people. There may be a value in involving them, but I will say in general, the customer will not be involved. So the customer will not be involved in general. But if you have a blocker you identified in today's daily stand-up meeting, maybe you want to call them tomorrow, but maybe I will not wait until tomorrow. I will have an action item from the daily stand up and say, here's the blocker that it needs this customer to be involved. And then somebody takes up that, one of the team members or the scrum master or product owner, most likely product owner, because he or she is interfacing with the customer. So I see very, very less possibility of involving customer in daily stand-ups. But of course, in sprint review, that's what they are doing. That is what they are doing. They need to be involved in a sprint review because they are looking at the product. So normally product owner looks at what the team does, and based on the definition of done, say, yeah, it is accepted or not accepted. Sometimes they may involve the other people, and they may have a demo of what the team developed. And most of the time, the customer is involved in those. And when we say customer, even if product owner is involved, he represents customers. So it may not be like many people may be involved. Even if product owner is involved, then of course so in daily stand-up, product owner may not even participate. May not even participate in daily stand-ups. So and sometimes they participate. Sometimes they participate. And now let's talk about retrospectives. What do you think? Should customer participate in retrospective or not?
In the daily stand-up?
No, retrospectives. We talked about daily stand-ups already. I'm talking about this sprint retrospective. That's the next ceremony.
Yes,
talk a little bit about the purpose of a retrospective.
The purpose of retrospective is to reflect.
Like a post-mortem?
So the three questions there is what went well, what did not go well, what we should do different.
It's like a post-mortem.
Yeah, that word is not used in Agile.
Sure.
It's a forward-looking thing rather than backward-looking thing. So we do look backwards, but with an idea of what we should do better in the next sprint, because that's next sprint. And post-mortem is normally used in the waterfall environment where the project is already over. Now you can't do much about it. But here, it's like inspection and adaptation. So that's what retrospective mean. And look at your last sprint. What are the things that went well? What are the things that did not go well? What we learned from this, and how do we improve in the next sprint? That's the purpose.
Well, I would suggest that without customer input from somewhere along the way, you couldn't have a thorough retrospective.
Yep. Agree.
Okay, so here is also my arrow is not full green.
Yeah, while they may not participate in the internal piece, there should certainly be some sort of interaction with the customer.
Right. So yeah, in some teams, they may hesitate to talk openly. And I was like, today I was looking at email. I'm coaching a couple of teams. So one of the very senior director level person or somebody said that we should document all this that happens in these meetings. So there was a big no from my side. No, you don't document these things. Agile is not about documentation. You basically openly talk, freely talk in these meetings. So retrospective is one of the things where people need to talk openly, and they are talking about the process, what process we have to change, what are the things we have to change. So, and if you see a Scrum guide, that will talk about that customer is not required, but could be added. So in daily stand-ups and retrospectives, customer is not required, not must kind of a thing. But all other things where you see the dark green arrows, that is where customer is a must. So customer must be involved in those activities in Agile, but not so much required in daily stand-ups and retrospectives. Will it help if we involve? Probably retrospective, I will say yes. Daily stand-up, it may be a distraction, particularly if team is big, like 9, 10, 15 people. Though that is not recommended, more than 9 or 10 is not recommended, but well, you know how the real world is. So this is a kind of a blueprint of, you can see where the customer can be involved and where customer can or may not be involved. But it is almost throughout the duration of the project. So it's a very heavy customer involvement. So if a customer says to you, I don't have time to participate in your project, then you will not be able to run an agile project very successfully. You can see how heavily it depends upon customer involvement. So be watchful about that. If you run into a situation where customer says, I'm too busy. I have told you what you want, what I want. I don't have time to sit and get back to me when you are done. Okay. So you may have that kind of situation. In that case, you may have to find people who will represent the customer and make it the part of the team. Otherwise, it will not succeed. Who is going to drive the project? Because the customer who is driving the project. So if you don't have a driver in the bus, then where the bus is going? So that's extremely important for an agile project. Any questions here before I move to the next slide? Okay, so let's talk about waterfall. So on the waterfall projects, where do you think customer can be involved in a waterfall project? So now we are talking about sprints. We are not talking about planning, review, retrospective. We're talking about waterfall project. You start with the requirement, planning, requirement, development, testing, delivery, and all those kind of things. So where the customer can be involved in waterfall project, and how do you bring? So first answer the first one, where the customer can be involved in a waterfall project.
In the beginning and the end.
In the beginning and the end. Okay. Anybody else? So my question is where the customer can be involved, not where customer is involved. So I will say involve them as much as possible, because you see the benefits of involving them. So involve them as much as possible. Of course, in the beginning when you do the planning and all that, and towards the end, the UAT, they come back and do the user acceptance testing. But even on waterfall projects, if you cannot do sprints, you cannot do iterations, you cannot do those kind of things, involving customers will still be very beneficial.
Right. So I missed the question. I thought you were asking how it is done today in the waterfall project. And
yeah. So that's why I repeated the question. Yeah. Can be involved.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. So I did not say how customer is involved, but what you said, that is what conventionally, and that is how it is in most of the waterfall projects. I completely agree with you. But I'm saying from a agile mindset, even if you have to do a waterfall project. So even if you have to do a waterfall project because of the way it is done in your company, you cannot change it. This is how the company is. So even then, when you plan a new project, you can have touch points with the customer and more touch points. So in the planning, when you create a WBS, where you list down what are the things that you're going to do, use case development. The BA can involve customer in use case development. The UX, the user interface, and the design of it, I think very important to involve customer in, because I have seen that's one of the major areas where user find defects or issues during testing. So that's where I say UX and UI touch point, and then building acceptance criteria. How to build acceptance criteria. So when BA works with them, they should involve. So those all use case development, UI UX design, building acceptance criteria. You can do prototyping. I have not listed here, but you can do prototyping and you can involve customer in that. Changes or change management. That's another area where you need to involve, and UAT, of course, and even user documentation. And sometimes the users or the customers say, I'm not going to do that, you do as a team. But at the same time, you can say, team doesn't know users, how you're going to use it. And then user training, you can have selected power users. You can involve them with the development, and those power users train other users. So there is a lot of opportunity for involving customers in even waterfall projects. So this is an agile practice of involving customers, can be very well applied in waterfall too. Okay, any questions on this? And of course, get face-to-face as much as possible. Do more face-to-face. So let's talk about this. Do you think you'll be able to implement this in your organization? Do you see any challenges, bottlenecks? What are the challenges for involving customer in your projects? In your organizations, do you see any challenges?
I don't.
That's great. Never enough time on top of now. That's very, very common. That's very, very common. So, and Nathan's, your customers are executives, so that's another issue.
So if
yeah, talking, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, if they see the value, then it will be easier to bring them in and keep them engaged.
Correct.
If they don't see the value, then I think it is going to be a real challenge.
Yeah. That's the core thing.
Well, yeah, and to that point, that's why they should be engaged on early on and agree on the scope, etc. Because if not, why are you developing something that they're not interested in?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And if they're interested, you guarantee you plan out far ahead enough in time on their calendar, you're going to be able to get their attention.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what value they are getting by investing their time. And I think that communication needs to happen, that you are asking us to do this, right? And if you don't check it out and provide feedback on a regular basis, then we may develop something else. And one of the examples that I use is that if you take a flight from Springfield, I'm from Springfield, many of you know, Springfield to Chicago, for example. So the plane has a predetermined flight path, right? A predetermined flight path that it has to fly. Now, when the plane goes up in the air, because of the whatever happens up, it may drift from the planned way. Now, but there are sensors there in the plane that says, okay, it has drifted, so they bring it back, even if it drifts a little bit. But let's say if there were no sensors, it drifts and keeps drifting. Then instead of Chicago, well, yeah, I'll land in New York. That's what happens when the customer is not involved. Because team will drift. And if they don't provide input, so customer providing input is putting that plane back on the track. even if they are executives. So I give this example to the customers that this is what you are doing. You are the sensors who are telling, oh, you drifted. And if you know, and if that flight is longer, and I'm not going to Chicago, I'm going to New Delhi, India. Really, if those sensors don't work, who knows? I may land in China. No.
Well, yeah.
Oh, it is China. It is not New Delhi. It is Beijing.
Yeah, instead of Osaka, you run up in Alaska.
Yeah.
That's a true story for someone I know one time. Got on the wrong plane.
Yeah, that happens. So that is why. So someone was talking about showing the value, and I use this example to show value. Because if you want what need to be delivered, then you need to be engaged with the customer. Okay, so I'm showing a couple of slides about the PMP exam prep, but we can continue the discussion. Test simulator for the PMP if you're preparing for PMP, free live chats. The next one is, actually no, next training is not leadership. Actually, maybe Philip missed it. Next one is the Kanban, leadership is May. So then the next one is Kanban. Kanban versus Scrum, that is what we have. That leadership is in May. I don't know, Philip, did we change this? I think we still have Kanban in April and leadership in May. Okay. Yeah, that's it. So, yeah, it is. Yeah, there's something is messed up there. This is right. Scrum versus Kanban on April 4. And so you can go back and register. This is how you will claim your TDU for this session. And then, you know, we award our loyal attendees, the PR Start attendees, and give them a $10 Amazon gift card if they attend 3 in a row. So this month we have Michelle. Michelle did not attend today, so now she will be out for next 3 times before she can become eligible again. So Michelle will be sending Michelle a $10 gift card. Could you go back to the PDU slide? Yeah, here it is. And Joe, you'll be getting this a copy of this PDF. Philip should be sending this in next couple of hours or so. So you'll always have it. And this slide is same. Only if you see that what changes is the topic and the date.